Hi there. Welcome to Supervisor Spotlight. My name is Angie Carpenter, proud to be the supervisor of the wonderful town of Islip. We're here in the town at our wonderful town-owned airport, Long Island MacArthur Airport, in the studios of Long Island News Radio, with our very special guest today, and his name is Charlie Spencer. And we're going to find out some very interesting things, and especially about his occupation. So, Charlie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Well, I would like you to tell everybody, we'll start off with what you do for a living.
Well, it depends on where I am, what I say. Sometimes I say I'm a travel agent. Other times I say I'm an author. But I'm a funeral director. And people get wary of that when they hear that. But after we talk a while, they get more comfortable and understand what I do.
And you're just a regular guy that works for a living and goes out to dinner and goes on vacation and has a family. And but you're there for people at probably a very vulnerable part of their lives. And, you know, I've seen it over the years. I've certainly gone to enough wakes, and I've experienced having to bury a loved one, both my parents, and can see, or did get the opportunity to see, how a funeral director can really make an incredible difference in how someone handles such a tragic event in their lives.
It's funny that you say that, because somebody called me up the other day and said, "That was such a nice thing you said to my mother." And she said she'll never forget it. I had no idea what I said, but it made an impression and made the lady feel good. And that's what funerals are all about, making people feel comfortable and accepting death. And when I first started many, many years ago, death was morbid. Today it's a celebration of a person's life. It's a whole lifetime it takes to die. Death is the experience of a lifetime. And all those things that go on to make you who you are the things that are important. Mm-hmm. And that's what we try to bring to the surface today. And a friend of mine who is a surfer was going away, and he said, "It's a little dangerous where I'm going. I'd like to prearrange my funeral." I said, "Well, you're in good shape. You'll outlive me, but we'll write everything down." And I said, "I already know what type of funeral you want. We're going to bring in surfboards and line them up on the wall. Going to go over to the beach, get some sand, put it down on the floor on a tarp. We're going to make everybody wear flip-flops, play Bob Marley music." And he's eating this up, saying, "Man, that's exactly what I want," you know. So he can't wait to die, this guy. But seriously, it's a celebration of a person's life, who they were.
Well, you know, it seems over the years that it certainly has morphed more into a celebration. It's not quite as morbid, and certainly it is sad. I mean, when you're in a church and listening to the homily, or have a family member come up and share their thoughts on the person that's passed, very often it's heart-wrenching. But the experience of going to a wake now doesn't seem to be, as you said, as morbid and difficult as it was in years past. There are more photographs, there's videos, there are plenty of opportunities for people to share their memories of the person that has passed.
You know, you just struck a chord about things have morphed over the years. We usually get business people call us up. Today people are texting me, "Mom died." Suppose I wasn't there to answer the text or something like that. And the technology that's come through, like you say with the movies today, we have a system that you can type in the person's name from any place in the world and see their whole family history. And we use photographs, because when do you take photographs? During your good times, birthdays, anniversaries, graduations. And it brings back the good memories of the person that has passed away. We even have this new thing that if you visit the funeral home and you happen to have a picture on your phone you'd like included in the video, you can just go on the website and immediately put it right on the screen, which scared me originally, because I said, boy, maybe somebody will put something that's not appropriate.
Yeah.
But it's never happened, thank God.
So tell me how you got interested in being a funeral director?
Well, I was born in New York City on East 74th Street between 3rd and Lex, and it was a funeral home I was born over. And my father, who was a World War II veteran, was the manager of that funeral home. So that's where I started my life.
You grew up understanding what it was all about. So did you go right into it?
I didn't want to be in the funeral business, and I told my father that from day one. And he said, well, what are you going to do? I said, well, my grandfather was a police lieutenant. I'd like to do that. So I joined the New York City Police Department and had a career there, and was a funeral director as I worked as a policeman, too. After I was off, I'd go to work at the funeral home, and being a policeman and a funeral director was very similar.
I was just going to say, those careers are very, very much aligned.
Yep. You're there to help people.
Absolutely.
And that's important, and it makes me feel good. And the other thing I always think about when I'm dealing with families, always be honest, because people know when you're not honest. And I have to live in the town and see these people all the time, and I don't want to have to hide my face. And that feeling comes through to people because they mention that, you really helped me with my dad, and I probably handled thousands of funerals over the years, and some of them you remember very distinctly. Peter Fogasky.
Oh, yes, I knew his mom.
I know you know his mom, and Mary Ann is a lovely lady.
She certainly is.
And their son, Peter, was shot and killed around Christmas, and he had 4 daughters just like me. And the press was all around the funeral home trying to get information, and I said, when the time is appropriate, they're going to have a press release and things like that. And, well, how do you feel about this? So I said, well, I feel very deeply because he had 4 daughters, I have 4 daughters. Yeah. And I was a policeman, he was a policeman. I walked in his shoes and know exactly what the situation was, and, feel badly. And I think of Peter Fogasky probably 2 or 3 times a week at least.
Yeah.
And I helped the family design the headstone, and his picture is right there, his shield number is there, and the beach here in Islip is right on the bottom of the stone.
Wow. Because
those are the things that meant a lot to him and a lot to the family. And his daughters designed the stone, and it made them feel good.
I'm sure that whole process, too, again, it's changed, but to be able to have a headstone with a picture and a design and everything, and then have the family be a part of creating that, gives them a sense of continuity with the relationship with the loved one that they've lost.
Right. Why should I design the stone? It's their family.
Yeah.
And they say, some people say, can we do this? Can we do that? I said, you can do anything you want. This is your family.
Yeah, yep.
And another fellow who was a sailboat builder had passed away, and I said to the family, if you want, bring a sailboat and we'll put it in front of the funeral home. And they laughed, and I said, no, I'm serious. Next thing, a 27-foot sailboat came. And I was getting calls from people, did so-and-so die? I see his sailboat out front.
Wow.
The Menger Cat. So, and another fellow owned a bus company, so we lined the buses in the driveway, and everybody knew that Jimmy died. So it's who you are,
And having those visible signs, there may be people that think that's kind of silly, but it's not. It really makes it real, I guess.
Absolutely. And that's really important. And it's what helps people get through the day.
Absolutely.
Gee, I remember the good times. And let me look at that video. And
remembering the good times is what it's all about. And I would just ask if we could take a little break, and we will be back to the studio here with Charlie Spencer and Supervisor Spotlight. Thank you. Hi there, this is Angie Carpenter, Supervisor of the Town of Islip. We're here in the studios of Long Island News Radio with our Supervisor Spotlight, and today the spotlight is on Charlie Spencer. Charlie is a funeral director in the town of Islip, and we were talking a little bit about how you got involved in the profession and what it means. And, you know, there are a lot of other aspects to being the funeral director that people may not be aware of, things like death certificates and your interaction with the medical examiner and the clerk's office at the town and the kinds of things that are necessitated when someone passes.
That's true, and it's like a mystery to people.
It is.
To me, it's an everyday occurrence, but sometimes you need a death certificate. And if you die in the town of Islip, which a lot of people do because we have Southside Hospital and Good Samaritan Hospital Medical Center, all those death certificates are in your care.
At the town, and the good care
clerk,
of our town clerk, Olga Murray.
Olga
yes.
Murray.
Yep.
And she does a great job.
They do. She and her staff do a great job.
And they're very cautious about who they give a death certificate to, because I could get a death certificate and some other things and close out a mortgage, open up a credit card, or do a whole plethora of things if I get a death certificate, because the Social Security number is there,
Exactly.
the person's address, so I could assume their identity. But there's a whole bunch of people that are involved. The medical examiner, if you die and you're not under the care of a doctor, the medical examiner is going to be called to investigate the death. And sometimes we find out that what we thought was a natural death was actually a murder or a suicide, an overdose, which is happening much too much today.
Much too much.
I mean, I would like to take young people and bring them through the funeral home when we have a funeral of a young person in their age group and see the effect of what they've done on the family.
You know, Charlie, stop right there, because I want to seize upon that opportunity. You know, at the town of Islip, and I'm not sure if you're aware of it, and maybe you are, we have just recently passed legislation formally adopting an opioid and drug abuse awareness task force. And Drew Scott, who was a newscaster who tragically lost his granddaughter to an overdose, and Marianne Pfeiffer, who heads up our youth agency in town, they are co-chairing this task force. So they're in the process now of reaching out to community members to volunteer who maybe want to be a part of it. But Drew is doing this in the town of Islip, and I reached out and asked if he'd consider doing it in the town of in Southampton. So he is now going to be doing this with Marianne in Islip. But what you just said may very well be a part of their recommendations, that, you know, maybe a school class should have to go and witness what happens. You know, maybe a family would be willing to allow you to videotape and let them see people crying their hearts out because they lost someone needlessly. You know, more times than not, it's a young age because of overdose.
That's a very interesting thought. And Drew Scott and Marianne Pfeiffer, you couldn't find better people to head something like that. And yes, I'm aware of it because I watch what you do every day. And so do a lot of other people. We read the paper, and Drew Scott is the perfect guy. He's experienced it firsthand, unfortunately. But I would have an empty casket in the room and say, make believe you're there in that casket, and your parents are standing over you, crying their eyes out, saying, how did they fail because of what you've done?
Because parents, and I'm a parent, I'm a grandparent, you naturally want to make sure that your child has everything the world has to offer. You want them to be as successful as they can, and you think that you're the one that can do it. You're the one that can make it happen and is supposed to make it happen. And God forbid something tragic like that happens, the parents are saying, what did I do wrong?
Right.
You take it on yourself. It's like your fault.
And it's not the parents' fault.
No.
It's poor choices that the child themselves has made, and they can destroy the rest of their family for the rest of their life. Same with suicide. It's 1 second of indecisiveness, and you're gone, but the lasting effect it has on your family and the unanswered questions are really devastating. And that's the sad part of being in the funeral profession, seeing unexpected deaths. If I'm 90 years old, well, I'd like to live a little longer, but it's kind of my time. But when you're 13, 15 years old, 20 years old, you're 35 years old and drinking or using drugs, and you have 2 young children that depend on you, that really brings it home that something's wrong in our community. And I'm glad that you in the town of Islip have really reached out and grabbed the bull by the horns, more or less, and done something proactive. Because
and it's not a problem that's unique to the town, to the county, to the state. I mean, this is a nationwide epidemic, and I know even at the federal level, I think they're finally recognizing that, and hopefully will put some of the resources necessary so that we can address it in a meaningful way. And whether it's drugs or gangs, which, as it turns out today, the governor was here in the town of Islip announcing there was a bill signing for a bill sponsored by Senator Phil Boyle and New York State Assemblyman Phil Ramos, putting money into preventative programs, which I think is key. There's no magic bullet, but certainly if you can have programs in place that give kids a sense of self-worth and a sense of self-confidence, they're not going to be vulnerable to the recruitment of drug dealers and gang leaders who are looking for someone who's going to say, "Oh yeah, I want to belong. Yeah, I'll take that drug."
When I was a policeman, I worked in Midtown Manhattan, and we had a lot of young people coming from Minnesota and places like that, never been to a big city, and they were grabbed up by bad people, and they made them do bad things, and left parents in Minnesota devastated. And then you say, well, we have a good family, so we don't have to worry. Well, I tell you, I handle a lot of funerals for those good families, and they're beautiful people, and I say to myself, why? I knew the child who was a teenager. I knew the parents. Everything looked great, and maybe it was just one time this fellow was given this drug by a friend, and look what happened.
Yeah, and it just takes once.
Oh, and the ripple effect through the family, unbelievable.
Yeah.
So it's unreal. But let's, this is very sad.
It is sad, but it's part of life.
Yeah.
It's part of life, and you see the sad, and you see a lot of good too.
Yeah.
And you do a lot of good, and you said something earlier about when people come in, you just believe in being honest and basically telling them how it is, or really giving them the real scoop, because you're a part of the community. You live in the community, and you're going to see them. You're going to bump into them in the Stop and Shop, or whatever supermarket they go to. So we're going to talk a little bit about what it means to be a part of the community, because you certainly exemplify that. So I'd ask everyone to please stay tuned. We will be back in a moment after we take a little break with Charlie Spencer here on Supervisor Spotlight. Welcome back to Supervisor Spotlight, and I certainly hope that you all came back, because our last little segment was it was sad. It was kind of powerful. We kind of said that in the break. But certainly doing what you do for a living, Charlie, it puts you out there in the community. As I said in the very, very beginning, you're there when people are most vulnerable, but you're also there giving back. And you mentioned being a veteran, and I know you're very, very much involved in veterans issues and involved in community issues. Charlie is the president of the West Islip Chamber of Commerce and has been involved for many, many years. And that's all your own time, your own money, taking you, out of, when you could be relaxing and you're out there doing. And it's really much appreciated. And thank God there are so many people like you across this wonderful town of Islip. But tell us a little bit about your involvement with the veterans community, because that's our cherished veterans.
Well, we have a program at the funeral home. We bury homeless veterans at no charge. So we make a little ceremony, make up some prayer cards, and there was a fellow who lived in a house in Bayshore. Some church group had it. He had nobody. They called us up. We get a hold of the public administrator. The public administrator gives us a letter stating that we're the relatives, more or less, of this homeless veteran. We have a little service at the funeral home and invite the community. I believe you've been to one or two of these. Invite the veterans organizations, and then take the veteran to Calverton, where he gets buried with military honors, and it's really a beautiful thing. And I'm just thinking of a fellow who, after serving in Vietnam, lived in the woods in the adjoining town for 40 years.
Wow.
And so I did what I normally do, have this nice little service. Tons of people showed up. And I said, "What are you doing here for this guy?"
Yeah.
He said, "Oh, he raked leaves for me." Another one, "Oh, he ran errands." And when they found him, they found a roll of Social Security checks that he had collected over the course of 40 years and never cashed one of them because he didn't want anybody to know where he was.
Wow, isn't that interesting?
And so everybody in the community said, "Oh, that's a very nice thing to do." But it makes me feel good as a veteran to take care of another veteran. And we had the replica of the Vietnam Wall that we brought to West Islip.
That was absolutely moving.
And,
that was beautiful.
The principal, Mr. Bridgman, said, "You know what? I hate to see this wall go because the kids learn so much." We had combat veterans lecturing the students. And I said, these kids, it's a paragraph in the history book of Vietnam, but they asked terrific questions. I remember one young fellow said, a Purple Heart is when you get shot. Suppose you get shot twice. You get a bigger Purple Heart? No, you get two of them. And they learned a lot about what some of their grandparents have gone through, because typically veterans don't talk about their experiences. And so this gave them the opportunity to go home and speak to their grandparents that I encouraged. They said, talk to them. Yeah. If you ask them, they'll tell you.
How many times do, I mean, myself personally regret not having talked more to my parents when they were alive to find out about, the history and everything. You look back and I wonder, So anyone out there watching, talk to your family and get that history, that living history, while they can share it with you.
Better than that, make a video as a gift to your grandchildren and tell them what life was like when I was young. There were no cell phones, and I still survived. Today, young people can't live without their cell phones, and me neither. I use a cell phone every hour of the day.
Yep.
And so many things have changed, but they come around, and things always stay the same, but there's a different venue. We had flip phones. I have friends that still have flip phones. Unbelievable.
Better than flip phones were those ones that weighed about 4 pounds or 5 pounds.
Oh, yes, with the big antennas. Yes.
Exactly,
yes.
Exactly. We've been around a while.
Yep. But the veterans are a special group, and my own son-in-law is just retired from 33 years in the Marines, so he's seen a lot, been around the world many times, Afghanistan, Grenada he started out with, Iraq, been to all countries all over the world, and only 1% of the population is really touched by a veteran. It's a very small, tight-knit group, veterans. Most people have no experience with military.
But I find in the last number of years, and I think because of things like you just described that you do with burying homeless veterans and so forth, or bringing the community together to celebrate a veteran who may not have had family, it's given people a different respect and appreciation for those who have, willingly gone forward. I mean, yeah, years ago there was a draft, but now anyone that's in the military chooses to go into the military. And finally, there is a real appreciation and respect for the veteran community. So really, we thank you for helping raise that awareness and share that sense of patriotism and appreciation for what our veterans have done. I'd like you to talk a little bit about your other community involvements. I know that you serve on the Foundation for Our Lady of Consolation, and you're president of the Chamber of Commerce. Talk a little bit about how that, it makes you, I think, understand better what the community is really, really all about.
I like to keep my finger on the pulse of the community and to make a difference. And I think we all want to make a difference, don't we?
We do. And I think people sometimes are willing to help out, but a lot of people are reticent to step forward. And that's why, someone like you who, quickly says, oh, sure, I'll do it, But a lot of times people need to be drawn out. But after they've been asked and after they give and do, I think they feel better about themselves, and certainly the community as a whole is better.
Absolutely. I've had people call me, how do I get to volunteer? Oh, that's no problem.
Oh, yeah.
But anybody out there who does want to volunteer, give me a call.
Oh, good.
I'll show you a multifaceted way to put yourself to work in the community. And when you put your head on the pillow at night, you'll go right to sleep because you'll feel good about yourself.
And I think we're seeing that instilled more in our young people. Schools have community service programs now where they didn't in the past. So hopefully we are building a generation of people that are going to care about their community and give back to their community even more so than before.
Absolutely. And you look at the town where you live. I look at the town of Islip where I live, and the amenities that are here that make me want to live here, that help my family. The YES program. My grandchildren are in that.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Holy mackerel, that's the best thing that ever happened to those children. They learn how to cook. They learn how to do artwork. They take, it's a hidden gem. I don't even want to tell anybody how good it is, but it's super. And Mary Ann Pfeiffer, who heads it up, is terrific. And our supervisor who founded it did a wonderful thing. And I don't know if they know how wonderful it is. So anytime you see the YES program, Youth Enrichment Services, go out of your way for them because they really give back to the community.
Well, Charlie, I appreciate you saying that for a number of reasons. First of all, it's this time of the year when people are going to be wondering, what are my kids going to do this summer? The YES program has an incredible summer program. So please look them up. Check out their website. It helps keeps people, young people, engaged, involved, and out of trouble. There's such a sense of caring there. All economic strata. It's really an incredible program. So I thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah. And who are the counselors?
And that's an opportunity for kids to get into the work, marketplace.
Most of the counselors are former.
Yes, exactly.
Went through the YES program, so
Yep.
they know exactly what it is. And if they saw a need for improvement, they can do it. So.
And now we have to wrap up. So I thank you so much for being here and sharing what it is to do what you do and be a part of the wonderful community in the town of Islip. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.